we send our kids off to school. And why do we do that? We do that so that they can get this training and they can become what they're going to be. But what has actually transpired now? What has transpired now is that there is that fine line that's being crossed where the education system is kind of pushing a certain ideology on our kids.
A lot of different ideologies.
Different ideologies.
For sure.
Maybe that we're not comfortable with. And we stay on the sidelines saying, okay, wait a second. Is it important for my child to know what their teacher's sexual preference is?
Welcome to the WomanHood Lectures, where we discuss issues that matter to you, the modern day woman. I'm Yasmin.
And I'm Lyra. We are on Rumble as well as Spotify. Please like, subscribe, and share, and feel open to drop a comment. We really don't mind. Today we're going to do a different topic, and we're going to talk about schools and schools for our kids. So this is an opinionated show between the two of us, where we express our thoughts on what's going on right now in society, specifically in Canadian schools, and what we're experiencing, what we're seeing in other schools in the States and other parts of the area. And what our expectations are as moms. I think, it is very opinionated. Maybe it won't resonate with you. So whatever doesn't, throw it away.
Check it out.
It's not for you.
Yeah, that's all good.
So that being said, we both have, between the two of us, 5 kids in school, right? So they're not tiny anymore. But if they were, we probably would be foot stomping, really upset, because right now we're open to having a good dialogue with our kids, right?
Absolutely. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
Where do you think the line is? And this is kind of the crux of our conversation. Where is the line between what a parent's responsibility is, what we are teaching our kids, versus what the school should be teaching? And where do we feel, and where do you feel that schools are overstepping their bounds and sort of stepping in and parenting your kids on certain issues, matters, subjects where you're like, back off, that's my job.
Right.
Those are the things that I want to be teaching my kids.
Right.
Where do you think that line is? Do you think that schools are overstepping their bounds right now?
I do. But then, let's go back to what is the purpose of school?
Right.
School is to educate our children.
Correct. Okay.
So the education is for, and what reason? It's for vocation, or what they're going to do in their lives, right? So let's say, for example, my daughter, she wants to be a criminologist, for example. Okay. What does she need to do to get there? She needs to take math, science, English, all these courses. And then she needs to graduate and then actually get into a specialty program, which eventually, will be a designation to be able to practice what she practices and hopefully work in the field, right? If you're a tradesperson and you want to be, I don't know, a sheet metal worker or a carpenter, you're going to take a specific vocation, certain training to become that skilled tradesman, or practice that and then go out and work and obviously be a part of society. Okay.
Right.
So obviously we have had several episodes where we talked about how the world's changing. It's becoming very, social media oriented. We're kind of focused on, I guess you could say, the wrong things. Our children are trying to all be, YouTube stars.
Yeah,
or maybe
the next TikTok star.
The next TikTok star.
Yeah.
So are we. But I'm saying generally speaking, we're trying to get our voice out there. But kids are looking at that as their future, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that being said, we send our kids off to school, and why do we do that? We do that so that they can get this training and they can become what they're going to be. But what has actually transpired now? What has transpired now is that there is that fine line that's being crossed where the education system is kind of pushing a certain ideology on our kids.
A lot of different ideologies.
Different ideologies.
For sure.
Maybe that we're not comfortable with. And we stay on the sidelines saying, okay, wait a second. Is it important for my child to know what their teacher's sexual preferences.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What happened?
And that
what happened
has
with
been discussed.
Your
So,
kids?
well, one of my kids came home and told me at the age of 10 that her teacher was a bisexual, and I was floored at the idea of a teacher sharing that with a 10-year-old. Like, this is somewhere where I draw the line and I say, okay, what do I want my kid doing in school? I want my kid to learn, right? I want to learn. For sure, I would like her to learn the way that life is different, and maybe, what is happening to our world, for sure. But at the age of 10, I think that their focus should be on school.
Yeah.
Playing, learning.
Yeah. So
school.
Straight education.
Straight education. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So age 10. So grade 5.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I mean, for me, my issue would have been, why are you getting so personal with my kid?
Right.
Why are you telling my kid your personal life?
Right.
That's
exactly.
outside of school. That has nothing to do with what you're teaching them. Why do you need to tell my kid what you do in your bedroom?
Yep. It was actually divulged to the entire classroom.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So
under what context? I'm curious to know, like, under what context? Was this just out of the blue? Was it part of some other lesson? Like, I'm just wondering. You don't know?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But I just remember being floored at the concept of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, that's where the line gets drawn. Like, if I am going to be responsible for my child, and you know what, are there parents who probably don't really get fazed about these things? Probably.
Sure, of course.
There's probably parents who are so busy, it can get really crazy busy, and you're busy with your career and you're busy with life that, you just send your kids off to school and pray. That they come out solid,
or just
right?
assume
just assume that the system
will
going
take
to take
care
care
of
your kid.
Yeah.
But there are these things that are being pushed, and these ideas being pushed that, and to some degree, it's just getting younger and younger that they're pushing these concepts.
I would agree.
Of sexuality and gender, and I think it's very confusing for a kid. What it is also doing is, for parents like me, they're having to have thorough conversations.
Right.
I'm having twice as many conversations with my kids.
Yeah.
Trying to explain our thought process, what we believe in spiritually, what we believe in, in terms of our thoughts processes and how we view life. And to say, does that resonate with you or not? Like, we have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
So it opens a door to that conversation, which is great. But do we want to have it at such a young age? Probably
I guess
not.
it depends. It really depends on you, your kids. And I do think that as a parent, I would like to have the choice as to when I introduce certain ideas to my kids, when I talk to them about certain things. And I don't think that it's your teacher's job to teach you about that stuff.
No.
I just don't. Now, granted, my kids all went through the Catholic school system, and they were very open in terms of when they started discussing things like sexual health, puberty.
Right.
Again, because it was the Catholic school system, they went through what they considered their basis was always the nuclear family, and sort of building on that idea.
Okay.
Of course, understanding that there's different types of families and there's all types of different people out there. However, that's kind of how they based their physical health, sexual health type of education.
Right.
And they were very open about letting parents know, this is what's coming up in the curriculum. This is what we will be teaching. This is exactly what we're going to be covering. If you have any issues, please come and talk to us about it. I can't even remember if we could opt out. I think some people, I think you can opt out if you want.
You can opt out.
But again, you have to be a parent who's on top of everything and then willing to fill in those gaps.
Right.
I totally would have been, but I was also comfortable with how the pace of what they did. But it did start early. It started earlier than certainly when I was in school. It started, I think, in grade 3 or 4 is when they just started talking about the ideas.
Right.
So that pre-pubescent stage. I think I would have probably been a little bit upset if the teachers started talking about their, whatever they are,
whatever they are.
outside of school. Again, very personal. What you do behind closed doors. My kid doesn't need to know that.
But they are doing that in the form of words right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I guess they are.
They're disclosing it, you know, what they are. And to me, I just think school is for school.
Okay.
School is for learning. That's my thought.
Yeah.
Throw me under, a train if that be the insulting to anybody.
That's fine.
And I want to have control over my kids, and I want to put them in the right direction. I don't want them to worry about these things at such a young age. When they're old enough and they face the world, and they can be stunned, when they get there and be shook. I mean, that's fine.
But I think it's good for you to guide them through that.
I do.
For sure.
100%. So my takeaway on that would be, I take the time to, and so does my husband, to talk thoroughly with our teenagers, about these concepts, and to explain it, and to ask their opinion, and to, if they're reading a specific book and it's very divisive in nature, we talk about it. We talk about what those concepts are, because I think it's important as well as they're going through the content. I've had, and an aside, I've had a parent actually tell me that they literally do not want their kids even learning the curriculum. So there are extreme parents out there who are like, you know what, I want to take my kid out of school. I don't want them learning any of this stuff. Like, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm okay with my daughter reading it, and I'm okay with her learning it if there be some concept or some ideology being pushed, as long as we can sit and discern it, as long as we can sit and break it down and kind of come up with why. Why do you not believe it, or why do we not believe it? And what can we share about our thoughts on this? And we can have a conversation. So I think it's opened a few doors too for conversation, which is good.
That's pretty good.
But the dark side of it is like, leave that to me. I'm their mother. Yeah. I'm a mama bear. And, I'm here to protect my children. So
I do think that ideas are being introduced at a younger age now. And I do think, I don't know, particularly in my kids' school, but I do know that there have been a lot of incidences, especially across the States, where there are books that are being made available in school libraries.
Yes.
That some parents are really up in arms about.
Of course.
Because they're available to very young kids, as young as, kindergarten. And they have very adult or mature ideas. Right? They're talking about explicitly about sexuality. I've seen some crazy stuff out there. Like,
it's very disturbing.
Yeah, and they're kids' books. But I mean, if you're going to have a kid's book that is obviously available, right? It's out on the market. I don't know. I think that schools really need to take responsibility as to what they're carrying in their libraries. And so that's something that I think should actually pass some sort of test, either through parents should be aware of it at least.
100%. Yes.
Right. If you want a kid to have access to something, you as a parent can go and buy the book if it's not available at school.
Right.
Right. Like, I think, I know that there's a group in the States called Moms for Liberty that have been going around, doing the rounds on some podcasts and speaking out about some of the literature that's now available in public schools. Now, I don't know if it's quite here yet in Canada. I'm sure there are a lot of books available.
There are some people who are standing up against what's being put out here as well.
Yeah. Yes. Highly sexualized books, very, very explicit, and available to young kids. I don't think that's right.
No, I don't either.
Right? Like, we use movies still have ratings. Yeah. Why don't books? Right. Why aren't like, if a book is meant for a 16-year-old, it should not be available in an elementary school, period.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Some of these books, but anyways, I mean, I think that's one example of what we're talking about, where I think, some schools and the school system in general is starting to really parent our kids and taking over that role.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe I think part of the problem is that you have parents that are really, they're all working. There's two of them working in the household. They don't have a lot of time. They don't always have the wherewithal and the bandwidth to check every single thing that's going on in their kid's school. And they assume and trust, right? We trust that our teachers and our school administration and the system is going to be providing age-appropriate things, education to the kids.
Right.
So I don't know.
I think that's important. I think also, bringing back morality. We talked about this, you and I, about how they don't actually do the Lord's Prayer in school.
Yeah.
They used to do it in public school as well.
They used to. Yep.
At least when we were younger. But they used to do the Lord's Prayer, and whether or not you believe in that or not, public school is, it's not just for non-believers. There's Christians who go to public school. There's Muslims who go to public school. There's, plenty of other faiths that go to public school. I think the idea is that just there's a more moral code.
Yeah.
Being taught to our kid, you know what I mean? Or being like, this is what you need to do. So I think it's important to have that be the basis of school. Not, I'm going to teach your kid everything under the sun, and it's our right to do it. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it's a little bit too far. I think they've gone way too far.
Well, and they're like, again, in the States, you're seeing that teachers and school systems are now no longer obliged to tell parents what their kids are doing at school, what name they want to go by, what pronoun they want to use. Right. You as a parent, how do you feel about that? Would you want your kid to be sort of living a completely different identity at school and you have no clue about it?
No. Absolutely not.
Like that would be shocking for me, right?
Very, very
I would want to know. Why can't parents know? What's the problem?
Yeah, I think we want to know what our kids are learning. We want to know what our kids are learning, what they're feeling, what they're thinking to some degree.
Yeah.
When the school takes over and decides for us what we're really, I hate to use that word, but we deserve. We are afforded that right because we are their parents. So parents come first. Yeah. And some people just don't like that thought, but we gave birth to them. You know what I mean? We brought them in the world. We should have a say,
Well, I think right. And if you're a parent, you're responsible for that child. You're responsible for that human being. So I have a right to know what's going on with them too.
Absolutely.
When they're not in my care, they're in your care. I should be informed about what's going on. I should be fully informed. And I like 100%. The idea of parents and teachers working together. So that means street goes both ways. You want to know what's going on at home. I want to know what's going on in the classroom. I want to know what you're teaching my kid. I also want to know what's going on. How are they presenting?
Amazing.
Right? Like, I think that's just fair. I think that's fair. I mean, we hand our kids over for several hours a day. That's where they socialize. That's where they learn about life. And I think that's beautiful, and I think that's wonderful. And I'd like to know what is going on with them too.
Absolutely.
Right? I think it's helpful, and I think that's sort of the way that I would hope that most teachers and school districts would want to bring the parents in to work hand in hand with them.
Right. So what do you think is going to happen? Like, what direction do you think we're going to go in? I mean, there's a lot of stuff floating around where people are just like, take your kids out of school. The public school system is going to fail. And
absolutely,
the system is not meant for your kids.
Homeschooling has gone up dramatically in the last few years.
And one interesting thing, I think you had looked up a stat. Canada is number 4 or number 2?
Number 4
in education.
We're ranked number 4 in education, and I thought, really? I don't know about that. I don't know.
I tell this story all the time. When I was a teenager, I went back home, and my cousins were learning like far more advanced math than I was learning at the time. We were at the same age. They were learning university level math, and I was like in high school, and I was like,
I know a few countries where right?
They're far more ahead. And as these countries, as India and China are just like learning, we're trying to figure out what our gender our kid is, right? Like, we're just confusing our kids to hell, right? Like, they're confused, they're anxious, they're, worried about their mental health. Like, it's like, instead of just focusing on education and focusing on families taking responsibility for their children. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because it seems like one big distraction.
It is.
Right?
It's a
Doesn't it
distraction.
feel
Yes.
like
So
over
distracting.
here they're focusing, like even the social, what's available on social media is different
I know.
in some countries, right?
Oh yes. They ban
Yeah.
this stuff there.
It's so wild. It's so wild. The things that our kids have free reign over here are unheard of in other parts of the world.
Right.
They just don't have access.
No.
Right. So it's interesting. I feel like kids here are sort of being pushed into this direction to grow up really, really fast, to be exposed to really adult ideas and concepts at a really young age, when I personally don't think that their brains can handle it.
No, I don't think so.
Right? Like I said before, the human brain takes 25 to 28 years before it fully matures. You're taking 25 years to fully bake this person cognitively. What are you talking about when they're 5, 7, 9, 10?
I know.
Let them be kids.
Right?
Let them go out and play. Let them, learn about friendships. Let them, I just feel like childhood is such a minuscule part of our lives.
Right.
It's such a short time. Like, why are you trying to teach them about adult concepts at such a young age?
Right.
What is the point of that?
We didn't really have, when we were in grade school, our friends didn't have cell phones. We didn't have social media. We played outside, but yes, were we making jokes,
Of course.
and were we talking about these things amongst our friends? Yes, we were. We're absolutely, probably guilty of that as children. We were curious.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
curious.
That's
now
fine.
we've left a lot of curiosity out the window because everything's just available. You know what I mean? Social media is just available. All the information is, you have to go there and try to control it for your kids.
Right.
And then they're talking about it in our schools. They're
Yeah.
talking about these concepts and these ideas. And I believe that it's very divisive. At
Okay.
the end of the day, all of this is very divisive because people are having to come up and say, no, I don't want this. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right,
then
right,
you're
right,
looked
right.
at as that, what did we call it? I believe we called it when you're trying to speak up,
Yes.
but you're just afraid to speak up. Because you're going to be like that bad parent or that
Yes.
parent that everyone's going to be like, oh, that,
Yeah.
she doesn't want
Yeah.
that, or she's
Yeah.
crazy,
Or
or
she's
she believes in that
crazy.
stuff, or,
Yeah.
she's super, spiritual, or she has ideologies that are not, normal. Bottom line is we used to exist like that before. We used to exist in a world where we had different concepts of what is right and wrong. And
we still got along.
and we still got along.
We
had
could.
different belief systems, with different
Yep.
spiritualities. We're all from different walks of life. We've all been raised differently. We have different perceptions.
Yep.
And we were still able to get along.
Yeah.
And we were able to say, you know what? No, I don't like this. And you'd show up to your school board meetings, and there would be a group of parents that you'd make a decision.
Yeah.
It wasn't just,
Yeah.
nope, this is what's been decided for
Yeah.
you. And this is
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
been
yeah.
decided for your child's life. That's where I draw the line.
Yeah,
So I think more parents need to speak up about what they dislike about our school system now.
And I think parents need to get more involved. So go to those school meetings, do your best to try to follow what's going on. I mean, I get updates, and we get our sort of what's up Wednesday newsletter from
What
the
happened
school,
in
and
this
what
school.
happened.
Yes.
Yeah. What's going on, what's coming up, what are we talking about at school? I think it's good to try and keep up with that, and then have the conversations. I know that I've always had conversations with all of my kids' teachers over the years, and try to really get to know them and get a sense of what are they like in the classroom. What are
they like now? What would you say they're like now?
Well,
that's my last question. I promise I won't dig.
Yeah. So far, I feel like most of my kids had decent experiences so far. I mean, they sometimes complain about teachers being super strict, or, that sort of thing. I haven't had any of them say anything to me like, oh, this teacher, showed up and they were talking all about, I don't know, whatever, being bisexual or whatever it might be. I haven't had that experience. So I don't know. Maybe
my kids are in the public school system.
Yeah, maybe it's different.
There's a couple of things that have come up in conversation. One of them was which I expressed to you.
Yeah.
A couple of other ones, situations. One where a teacher had said something to my daughter, was kind of creepy. And also told the class that she was non-binary and expressed that.
Okay.
Are they older? Yes. Is it still something you just don't want to know? I mean, no.
Again, it's like, to me, I'm like, why do I want to know that? That's personal.
Yeah. Like
aren't
personal.
you supposed to be teaching me math?
Exactly.
That would just be my natural question.
Right.
As a student, I'd be like, interesting. Like, why do I need to know that? What does that have to do with what we're supposed to be doing here? Right. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it was a personal conversation, but again,
it wasn't.
I do think.
It wasn't, and it was a very strange occurrence. So of course I spoke up and I said my piece, and I'm pretty sure I'm not very well liked, but I'm okay with that because my focus in my life is for my family. Like, your family should come first, you know, and your kids should come first. Like, who cares what they think?
Right.
You know, they're there to teach your children.
Yeah.
Vocational learning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I get that.
They're there for that. And the responsibility lies with us as parents.
It does.
To be able
Absolutely.
to say, this is what I want to teach my kid. I'm going to take onus for all of this and have the conversations to steer and guide them in the direction that you want.
Right.
Because we can't control what they learn out there.
Right.
We can't.
Absolutely.
All we can do is, as they say, take care of home.
Yes. Yeah. That's the best thing that you can do, certainly. And again, work with the teacher and reach out to them.
Yes.
Right. So
100%.
Yeah. I like that.
Interesting convo. Kind of a little.
Yes, but that's okay. That's okay. But thanks for joining us again, guys. And don't forget to like, share, and follow us on our YouTube channel at the WomanHood Lectures. See you next time.